kawawmat, in this video, we will discuss triangle congruence postulates. So, ito yung mga postulates na pwede nating gamitin to prove that the triangles are congruent. Okay? So, our objectives, we will illustrate the SAS, ASA, SSS congruence postulates, and also the SAA theorem. So, isasabay na natin siya dito. And we will also illustrate inductive skills to prove congruence between triangles. So let's start. So let us recall first the concept of included side and included angle of a triangle. So kung napanood nyo yung previous video, na pahapyawan ko na to doon. So medyo i-recap natin ng konti kasi ito ay kailangan natin sa concept ng ating triangle congruence postulates. Okay? So, let's start. So, ano ba ay itong tinatawag nating included side? So, when we say included side, it is when the vertices of the two angles are the endpoints of the segment. While the included angle, it's when the sides of an angle are the two sides of the triangle. Okay, so let's have an example. Mas madali siyang maintindihan kapag meron tayong figure. Okay, so I have here triangle ABC. So as you can see, we have three sides, three vertices, and three angles, which are the sides of the triangle, which are the parts of the triangle. Okay, so we are asked to identify the included side of angle A and angle C, and also the included angle of segment AB and segment BC. So, pinapahanap sa atin, ano ba itong included side at included angle? So, we are asked to give the included side of angle A and angle C. So, sige nga po, i-highlights natin yung angle A and angle C. Okay, so as you can see, I have two endpoints. So, ito yung based dun sa ating definition that the included side, ito yung kung saan yung two angles are the endpoints. So, itong two angles natin, these are the endpoints. So, alin dito yung included side? That is segment AC. So, in other words, pag sinabi nating included side, ito yung nasa gitna nila. Okay? Nasa gitna nila where it contains the two endpoints. Meron siya nung two endpoints na yon. So, para mas madaling tandaan, nasa gitna, nasa pagitan. Okay? Ganon din po sa included angle. So, sa included angle naman, sige po, i-highlights muna natin si segment AB and segment BC. So, etong dalawang sides na to, ito yung magsisilbing sides ng angle, dun sa included angle. Okay? So, alin dito yung, asan dyan, yung angle na nabuo from this two segments or sides. Okay, so we have angle B. So, ito yung tinatawag nating angle B. So, nasa gitna siya. Okay, so, para mas madali nga pong tandaan, pag sinabi nating included, nasa gitna. So, ito, nasa gitna ng dalawang angles. Kaya yung angle A at angle C mo, ito yung gitna. Kaya, segment AC. Pag sinabi naman nating included angle, nasa gitnang angle. Okay, nasa pagitan nila. So, kung ito yung side AB and side BC, ano yung nasa gitna nilang angle? We have angle B. Okay, so that is the concept of included side and included angle of a triangle. Now, let's talk about the opposite side and opposite angle. So, let's say I have segment AB. Okay, so meron ako ditong segment AB. So, this is your segment AB. Pag sinabi na opposite angle, so what is the opposite angle of segment AB? Ibig sabihin yung katapat niya. Okay, so yung katapat niya, that is the opposite angle. Therefore, the opposite angle of side AB or segment AB is angle C. Okay? Now, how about angle A? So, what is the opposite side naman of angle A? So, angle A, ibig sabihin yung opposite katapat. So, this is your angle A. So, the opposite side of angle A is segment BC. Okay, so that is the concept of opposite side and opposite angle. Next. So, identify the following in triangle ACE. So, I want you to give me the included side and included angle, opposite side and opposite angle of the following. Okay, so mag-try tayong sumagot so we can assess ourselves kung naintindihan po ba yung concept ng included side and angle and opposite side and angle. Okay. So, for included side of angle A and angle C, we have AC. So, this is your angle A, angle C. So, AC is our included side. Now, for included angle, this is your AC, this is your EC. So, the included angle is angle C. And then this one, we have segment CE. This one is angle E. Now, what is the opposite angle of CE? This is your CE. So, what is the opposite angle? Angle A. And what is the opposite side of angle C? This is your angle C. Ano ang opposite side niya? Segment AE. Okay, so let's proceed and recall the concept of congruent triangles. So, when do we say that the two triangles are congruent? Okay? If their corresponding parts are congruent. So, by the way, this is just a recall. Okay? Na-discuss na po to nung previous video. Pero, kailangan kasi natin ito dun sa ating postulates. Okay? So, medyo recall natin. Dapat alam natin ang pagkuha ng corresponding parts of a triangle. Okay. So, masasabi lang natin congruent sila if their corresponding parts are congruent. Okay, so let us identify the corresponding angles and corresponding sides of the triangle, of these two triangles. Okay, so for angles, we have angle A corresponds to angle D, angle B corresponds to angle E, and angle C corresponds to angle F. Okay, and then for our corresponding sides, we have segment AB corresponds to segment DE, segment BC corresponds to segment EF, and segment EC corresponds to segment DF. Now, always remember that the two triangles are congruent if and only if all of their corresponding parts are congruent. So, dito papasok yung concept ng CPC-TC where corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So, itong mga corresponding parts na to must be congruent para masabi natin congruent triangle sila. Okay, so tatandaan na we can only say that the two triangles are congruent if their corresponding parts are also congruent. So, since nakuha natin yung mga corresponding parts nila, ibig sabihin, itong mga corresponding parts na to, based dito sa ating CPC-TC, sa ating definition, itong mga corresponding parts na to are congruent. Okay, so take note of our symbol. So, angle A is congruent to angle D, angle B is congruent to angle E, and angle C is congruent to angle F. Now, ganun din po sa ating corresponding sides. Since ito yung ating mga corresponding sides, therefore, we can say that segment AB is congruent to segment DE, BC is congruent to EF, and AC is congruent to DF. Okay, so therefore, we can conclude our congruent statement is triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So again, take note of our arrangement. So, hindi pwedeng triangle ABC and then triangle FED. Hindi po pwede kasi kung uunahin mo dito si F, ibig sabihin si A corresponds to F. Okay? Dito, based dito, hindi po. So, take note of our arrangement po ng ating vertices. Okay? So, our congruent statement from the given corresponding angles and sides, we conclude that these corresponding angles and sides are congruent. Therefore, our congruent statement is triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DAF. Okay. So, let's talk about this. Ano ba itong apat na to? Meron tayong SAS, ASA, SSS, SAA. So, anong part ba ito ng triangle? Okay? So, yun ang iisa-isahin natin. So, etong SAS, ano ba ibig sabihin nito? So, we have, okay, S stands for, okay, S stands for the side. A stands for the angle. By the way, this is not just an angle. It must be an included angle. So, nabanggit natin kanina yung included. Pag sinabing included, nasa gitna. Gitna ng ano. So, lagay na natin tong isang S. Ito yung isang side mo. Okay? So, side, included angle, and your second side. Okay? Now, bakit hindi pwedeng angle lang? Okay? So, bakit included angle? Kung mapapansin ninyo, dito mismo malalaman ninyo, oh, the A here is included angle. Why? Kasi nasa gitna siya ng dalawang S, ng dalawang side. Okay? So, pwede ba to? Hindi po. Kasi wala siya sa gitna ng dalawang side. Kung nandito ang angle mo, dapat nandito yung isang side. Okay? Pwede ba to? Hindi rin po. Kasi kung ito yung first side angle, dapat nandito yung isang side. But since ito yung dalawang sides natin, dapat nasa gitna siya nitong dalawang side. Kaya ito po ang ating angle. Okay? So, yun po yung SAS. Okay? Take note, it must be included. Nasa gitna po. Okay? Let's proceed to ASA. Ano bang parts ng triangle itong ASA? Okay? So alam naman natin that A is an angle. So, that is your first angle. And then, nasa gitna si S, yung side. So, this is your included side. Included side. And then, another angle. Okay? So, your first angle, your included side, take note, it must be included. Nasa gitna ng dalawang angle. And then, your another angle. That's why dito pa lang sa name niya, nasa gitna siya. Ibig sabihin, dapat yung side mo nasa pagitan, nasa gitna. Okay? Pwede ba to? No. Kasi angle, side, dapat dito yung next angle. Pwede ba ito? Hindi po. Kasi angle, side, dapat nandito yung angle. So, take note, it must be included. Angle, side, angle. Nasa gitna po nila. Next, SSS. So, SSS, ito naman yung 3S tayo meron dito. So, side, side, side. Okay? So, meron tayong for your first side, second, and third side. Okay. So, that's why it is called SSS. How about SAA? So, dito papasok yung first angle, your second angle. Okay. So, as you can see, meron din siyang dalawang angle. But what is the difference between SAA and ASA? So, ano ba ang pinagkaiba niya? Kasi parehong dalawang angle. So, kapag meron tayong exercises, ano ang isasagot ninyo? Paano nyo malalaman that that is SAA or ASA? Okay. So, dito, in this case, your side is non-included. Okay? So, yung side mo, opposite siya nung isa sa mga angles mo. Halimbawa, ito yung angle. Pwedeng ito or pwedeng ito. Halimbawa, ito rin. Okay? So, pwede yon. Hindi kagaya nito, ito yung angle mo, wala dito. Ito yung angle, wala doon. Okay? So, or in other words, paano nyo malalaman na SAA? Yung dalawang angles meron ka, yung side niya hindi included. Okay? Hindi siya doon sa gitna ng dalawang angle. So, doon nyo malalaman na SAA. Okay, so pag sinabi natin ASA, your S here is included, nasa gitna. Kapag SAA, yung S mo, wala siya sa gitna. Okay, so pwede dito, pwede dito. Okay, so ano ba itong mga to? So since alam na natin yung parts ng triangle, kung saan malalaman natin yung SAS, ASA, SSS, and SAA, let's proceed to the triangle congruence postulates. So, dito papasok yung congruence postulate. So, pag sinabi natin congruence postulate, meron na tayo dito dalawang triangles na i-compare. Okay? Meron na tayong dalawang triangles na titignan. Now, take note, sinama ko na po dito yung SAA, which is a congruence theorem. So, what is the difference between postulate and the theorem? So, ito po ay nabanggit ko na nung mathematical system. Okay? That a postulate is accepted as true even without proof, while the theorem can be proven, it can be proven. Okay? And you may use as proof. Okay. So, let's proceed. So, we have here, let's have first the SAS congruence postulate. Okay, so pag sinabi nating SAS congruence postulate, so we have two triangles here. So, yun po ang pag sinabi nating congruence. Hindi ka pwedeng magsabi na congruent kapag isa lang yung triangle mo. Okay? So, in SAS congruence postulate, if two sides and an included angle of one triangle are congruent to two sides and the included angle of another triangle, then two triangles are congruent. So, for us to say that the two triangles are congruent, the two sides, ayon, and the included angle, so nasa gitna yan kasi included, must be congruent. Okay? So, let's have an example. So, I have here a given figure. So, let's find first the corresponding parts of these two congruent triangles. So, ano ba yung mga corresponding parts nito? Dapat marunong tayo mag-identify ng corresponding parts. So, we have here AB corresponds to DB. Okay, bakit? Pareho sila ng markings. Next, we have angle ABF corresponds to angle DBC. Okay, bakit? Kasi they are vertical angles. So, corresponding angles yan sila. Next, we also have FB corresponds to CB. Okay. Now, from this corresponding parts of congruent triangles, we can say, sabi ko nga kanina, kapag corresponding parts, ibig sabihin, they are congruent. So, we can say that AB is congruent to DB, angle ABF is congruent to DBC, and segment FB is congruent to segment CB. Okay, so from the given set of corresponding parts, at ito, na-identify natin, since corresponding sila, they are congruent. So, tingnan natin, ito ay side, ito ay angle, ito ay side. Now, so, tingnan natin yung angle. Is it included? Yes. Nasa pagitan siya nung dalawang side mo. So, therefore, triangle ABF is congruent to triangle DBC by SAS postulate, congruence postulate. Okay? So, by SAS, they are congruent by side, angle, side. Kasi meron tayong side, angle, side. Let's have another example. So, I have here ML corresponds to PQ. And then we also have MLN corresponds to PQO. Okay. And then LN corresponds to QO. Now, since we have now the corresponding sides and angles, therefore, we can say that ML is congruent to PQ, angle MLN is congruent to PQO, and LN is congruent to QO. So, from this given sets of congruent parts of the triangles, we can say that triangle MLN is congruent to triangle PQO. Okay, pwede mo i-check. M corresponds to P. Tingnan natin. M corresponds to P. Okay, so dapat L corresponds to Q. Check natin ha. L corresponds to Q. Okay, so pwede mo siya i-check. Kasi dito tayo nagkakamali yung pagsulat na ng congruent statement. Make sure na tama po yung arrangement niyan. Okay? So, these two triangles are congruent by SAS postulate. Now, let's have the ASA congruence postulate. So, if two angles, so these are your two angles, if two angles of a triangle and the included side, so included, nasa gitna dapat, of a triangle are congruent to two angles and the included side of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. So again, your side here must be included para ma-consider natin siya as ASA. Okay? So let us identify the corresponding parts of the triangle. So we have angle F is corresponds to angle C. So pareho silang may single markings. And then AF, segment AF corresponds to segment DC. Also, we have angle A corresponds to angle D. Okay, so we can say that angle F is congruent to angle C, AF is congruent to DC, and angle A is congruent to angle D. Now, from this given set of congruent parts of a triangle, this is your angle, side, and another angle where your side is included side. Okay? So, kung titingnan natin, angle, included side, angle. So, this is, therefore, triangle FAB is congruent to triangle CDB by ASA congruence postulate. Okay? So, make sure na tama po ang arrangement nito. So, FAB and then CDB. Next. So, I have here, so hindi palaging ang markings natin pare-pareho, no? So, paano natin malalaman? Minsan ganito siya. Kung titingnan nyo, ito may single mark yung angle mo. Ito, double marks. Okay? Pagdating dito, wala siyang markings, pero yung arc niya, magkaiba. So, ito, isa lang yung arc. So, ibig sabihin, itong dalawa, congruent. Ito, tigdalawang arc. So, ibig sabihin, itong dalawa ay congruent. Okay? So, hindi palaging ganito. Minsan, ito ang ginagamit. So, dapat familiar tayo sa mga markings na ginagamit sa congruent triangles. So, let us identify the corresponding parts. So, angle 1 is congruent to corresponds to angle 2. QS corresponds to QS since meron tayong dalawang triangles dito at ito ang common side nila. So, since common side, ibig sabihin, pareho sila dyan. Congruent sila. Okay? So, they are corresponding parts of the triangle kasi nag-share sila ng common side. Okay? Next, angle 3 corresponds to angle 4. Now, from this given set of corresponding parts of two triangles, we can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. QS is congruent to QS. So, this is by reflexive property of congruence. So, eto po, anong property ang ina-apply natin dito? Reflexive property of congruence. And angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. So, from here, we can conclude that triangle QRS is congruent to triangle QTS. So, QRS is congruent to triangle QTS. So, again, lagi kong sasabihin na make sure na tama po ang arrangement nito. Okay? So, why are they congruent? By ASA congruence postulate. Next. So, we have the SSS congruence postulate. So, if the three sides, so we have SSS, so three sides. If the three sides of one triangle are congruent to the three sides of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. Okay, so let's have an example. So, we have here, LI corresponds to LE, IF corresponds to EF. Tingnan nyo yung markings. Okay, so LI corresponds to LE, IF corresponds to EF, and LF corresponds to LF. So, meron silang common side. Okay, so we can say that LI is congruent to LE, IF is congruent to EF, and LF is congruent to LF by reflexive property of congruence. Okay, so we can conclude that triangle LIF is congruent to triangle LEF by SSS postulate. Because as you can see, the three sides of a triangle is congruent to the three sides of another triangle. Another example. So we have here CU corresponds to TE. Okay? And then we have UT corresponds to EC. Tingnan nyo po yung markings. That's why this part corresponds to this one. Kasi pareho sila ng mark. And then, we have CT. Ito po, corresponds to CT. So, we can say that CU is congruent to TE, UT is congruent to EC, and CT is congruent to CT by reflexive property of congruence. Okay? So, since meron silang common side, so ibig sabihin, automatic yun, congruent sila dyan. So, as you can see, we have three sides of the triangle congruent to the three sides of another triangle. So, we can say that triangle CUT is congruent to triangle TEC by SSS postulate. So, meron tayong three sides na congruent. So, ibig sabihin by SSS postulate. Now, let's talk about the SAA, Congruence Theorem. Okay, so in other books, makikita natin AAS. Okay, so SAA or AAS, pareho lang po iyon. Okay, so wag po tayo mali dito. So, ito naman yung if two angles of a triangle and the side opposite of one of its angles are congruent to two angles and the side opposite of one of the angles of another triangle, then we can say that the two triangles are congruent. So, ito yung kapag meron kang two angles, hindi ba tayo magkakamali doon na ang pwede nating isagot ASA? Hindi po. Kasi sa ASA, yung S doon included, nasa gitna. Okay? Nasa pagitan dapat ng dalawang angle. Now, in this theorem, congruence theorem, yung side mo, non-included. Okay? So, wala siya sa gitna ng dalawang angle. So, non-included siya. So, let's have an example. So, given this figure, we have KI corresponds to NS. Next, angle K corresponds to angle N. And angle S corresponds to KSI corresponds to NIS. Now, so as you can see, i-check natin, yung side natin dito ay non-included. Paano ba natin masasabing non-included? Wala siya sa gitna. So, ito yung dalawang angles mo, di ba? Ito yung AA. Ito yung dalawang angles. So, itong dalawang angles mo, kung yan ay ASA, yung kanina, dapat nandito siya, included yon. Okay? But since wala siya dito, nandito siya, o kaya dito, so pwede dito ha, pwede rin doon. Kaya siya, tinatawag nating SAA. Yung side niya, non-included. Wala sa gitna. Okay? So, we can say that KI is congruent to NS, angle K is congruent to angle N, and angle KSI is congruent to angle NIS. Okay? So, these two triangles are congruent. Triangle KSI is congruent to triangle NIS by SAA theorem. So, again, pwede natin siyang, kasi in some other books, ang makikita nyo AAS. Okay? So, pareho lang po yun. So, let's try. So, I have here two triangles, a triangle ACO and JLG. Okay? So, given this set of congruent parts of two triangles, so I want you to identify what kinds of congruence postulate or theorem is illustrated by the given triangles. So, for number 1, pwede nyo siyang lagyan ng mark para hindi po tayo malito. So, for number 1, we have AO is congruent to this, AC is congruent to JL, and then OC is congruent to GL. So as you can see, using the markings, makikita mo kagad. So we have 3 sides. Okay, so that is SSS postulate. Next, we have angle C is congruent to angle L. AC is congruent to JL. And then OC is congruent to GL. So, included angle ito. Okay, so SAS postulate. Next, we have angle A is congruent to angle J, angle O is congruent to angle G, and then AO is congruent to JG. So, your side here is included, nasa gitna ng dalawang angle. So, ASA. Next, angle A. Angle A is congruent to angle J, angle C to L, and then OC to GL. So, paano po ito? Your side here is not included. So, alam mo kagad, AAS or SAA. Next, angle O is congruent to angle G, CO is congruent to LG, and then angle C is congruent to angle L. So again, your side here is included, so ASA. Next, AO, and then AC to JL, and then angle A and angle G. So your angle here is included. So SAS postulate. Next. So for each pair of triangles, write the marked corresponding parts, then identify the third pair that needs to be congruent to apply the specified congruence postulate. Okay. So, meron po tayo ditong dalawang figures, dalawang triangles. Now, from these 2 triangles, identify muna natin ano yung given. So, meron tayong dalawang given. Now, dun sa dalawang given, ibigay natin yung isa pang corresponding parts para maging SAS sila at ASA. So, identify muna natin yung given. So, ang given natin is SI is congruent to ME. And then the other one is angle S is congruent to angle M. So, ito lang yung given. So, para maging SAS sila, so ito lang yung given mo. So, S, side, angle, side. Side, angle, so dapat included angle, so dapat ito yung susunod para maging SAS siya. So, ano ito? So, ST is congruent to MN. So, from pag ito yung minark natin na side, magiging SAS siya. Okay? How about ASA? So, para naman maging angle, side, angle, okay, so dapat ito. So, angle I is congruent to angle E. Okay, so therefore, we can say that triangle SIT is congruent to triangle MEN. Let's have the second one. So, our given is, we have VI is congruent to VE. And then the other given, we have LI is congruent to LE. So, ano yung isa para maging SSS? So, meron tayong isang side, second side, ano yung pangatlo? Correct. We have VL is congruent to VL since nagsishare sila ng common side. So, this is congruent by reflexive property of congruence. Okay? Next, para maging SAS. So, para maging SAS, side, meron ka ng dalawang side. So, dapat meron kang included. So, since dalawang side ito, dito ka para maging included. So, we have angle I is congruent to angle E. From here, we can have SAS. So, we can conclude that triangle LIV is congruent to triangle LEV. Next. Given an isosceles triangle ABC, point D as the midpoint of BC and AD as angle bisector of angle BAC. Now, fill in the blank with the correct answer to illustrate that triangle BDA is congruent to triangle CDA. So, meron tayong isosceles triangle. Now, pag sinabi kasi nating isosceles, two sides of the triangle are congruent. Okay? Yung dalawang side. So, ito yung triangle mo, triangle ABC. Okay? Now, yung two sides niyan, congruent kasi isosceles. Sabi dito, point D as the midpoint of BC. So, kung yung D natin is the midpoint, ibig sabihin, kung midpoint siya, ito, congruent segments to. So, lagyan natin ng mark. Okay? Ayan. So, lagyan natin ng mark. So, tatandaan na kapag midpoint, ibig sabihin, hinahati niya yung segment into two congruent parts. Now, by the way, hindi ko na nabanggit. Kapag ang triangle natin ay isosceles, etong two congruent sides niya, automatic yung opposite side, nabanggit natin kanina yung opposite side, yung opposite side ng congruent triangles, ng congruent sides mo are also congruent. So, since isosceles to, congruent yung sides niya, yung opposite angles nila, okay, congruent din. So, kung congruent to, congruent din ito. Kasi yan ay opposite angles nila. Okay? And next, meron pa. AD as angle bisector. So, pag sinabing angle bisector, hinahati niya yung angle into two congruent angles. So, this is your angle BAC. Itong buo. Okay? Ito yung buo. Yung buo na yan. So, this is your angle BAC. So, since AD daw is your angle bisector, so hinahati niya raw yung angle into two congruent angles. So, lagyan natin ng mark. Okay. So, now, we have our figure. So, kapag sasagot tayo, mas okay kasi na i-drawing natin siya para mas nakikita natin kagad. Okay? So, let us complete and fill in the blanks with the correct answer para ma-prove natin that the triangle BDA is congruent to triangle CDA. Okay, so by SSS, Congruence Postulates, so binigyan ka ng tatlong given, so hahanapin mo na lang yung ka-pair niya. Okay, so AB is congruent to what? Para maging SSS sila. Congruent to AC. Next, BD is congruent to CD. And then DA is congruent to DA. So, this is by a reflexive property of congruence. Now, I'm giving you a chance to answer this, the number 2. Bago natin ipakita yung sagot. So, by SAS congruence postulate naman ito. Okay, so let us answer. So, we have DA, angle ADB, and CD. Okay, so BD, CD. Next. So, I'm giving you time to answer. Okay, so we have, pwede nyo i-pause yung video kung hindi pa enough yung time. Okay, so we have angle BDA, AD, angle DAB. And then we have segment AB, angle C, and angle ADB. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell para updated kayo for more video tutorials. This is your guide in learning your math lessons, your Wow Math channel.